After long years of companionship, when you have everything that people are envious of, vanity, jealousy, and pride, all three of them mixed together, adding a flavorful fruitiness, what would they do to the love and marriage? Can a couple survive? Or will the happily ever after finally arrive? Hello, fellow humans. This is Lots of Hope. Welcome to this episode of The Living Journey, where we escape and explore life in an alternate universe. Thank you for your support. Now, let's decompress. Mirror, mirror on the wall. In tuxedos and in love, holding hands in the back of a Cadillac Escalade, James used his left hand typing furiously, while his newlywed husband Dean used his right hand to type vigorously. "Can you turn off the music, please?" James said with no emotion and vibration, enhancing the keyboard typing sound effects rhythm. While the driver turned off the radio with the keyboard typing sound and an email sent sound effect, Dean, with no emotion and definition, said, "Thank you so much." They were going to a gala, a social party scene that was fashioned as a fundraiser in arts. That was the first time they appeared in such events since the wedding that they purposely threw to connect and socialize with all the people they would see tonight. Spend a huge amount of money, which the accountant sentenced as, even with the successful line of home decor, it is still super irresponsible. To their disappointment, and to the accountant's delight, not enough people they wished for RSVP'd. So the cost of the wedding was down and made tonight super important. At the gala, they would meet the final boss, for whom would decide the fate of their interior design firm. "God, I'm nervous. We need to give Larry Kelly the best impression so we can sell our company." Dean finished typing his email. Now he became anxiety-ridden. James wiggled his right hand that was holding Dean's left hand. "Call him Mr. Larry Kelly. Remember what his assistant said." After spending a good $10,000 on the assistant's nice weekend vacation, the assistant delivered a page of do's and don'ts about Mr. Larry Kelly. "I still think we should have sent her to Ibiza." Dean started a new reply, with the typing sound effect stealing his emotions again. Walking into the venue, people had barely started to arrive. There were only a handful of organizers, and a bunch of staffs, and the party is about to start panic mode. James and Dean arrived early on purpose. They were not here for pleasure. Plus, Dean sweats like a faucet when he gets nervous. Especially the face, running out of time, bring him extreme anxiety. That's probably why, although they were dressing as fancy as they were, with full closets of admirable fashion items, they were actually homebodies. The evidence, the extreme attention to detail, tasteful and useful home decor all around the apartment. An intimate space that only hosted close friends to relax, not to impress. When the mingling started, James and Dean danced around the facade of elegance and cordiality in polite society, mingling around the people whom they barely knew, and who didn't bother to show up. The couple kept on thanking everyone for the gifts that they had received. The gifts that were circulated and exchanged over and over again without the package being opened. Dean was curious. Opened a random gift wrap. Inside, there was a handwritten note from 20 years ago. It was exhausting to smile. "My mouth is twitching," one said to the other, and they mimicked a funny movement that they had seen by a New York subway street artist. Giggling in the sea of black-tied dress-coded "Hello, wonderful," and cheek kisses. A phone notification reminded them to stay serious and formal. It was the assistant that they had bribed, informing them of the time and location for the private meeting with Mr. Larry Kelly. Please forget about the bio that you had read. He is our Lord and Savior tonight. Show your respect. Think about the company that we spent 10 years building. James did his best to situate himself and try to ensure his sometimes goofy co-CEO stayed in character. I know I memorized all the numbers, and trust me, I will make sure that I won't make fun of him double last naming himself, Dean reiterated again, disregarding the request by his husband and co-CEO not to make fun of their largest investor until they inked the deal. So James rolled his eyes. I will punish you if you fuck this up. Then he looked around the room, made sure that no one was watching, and then squeezed Dean's ass. The meeting with Larry Kelly was simple. They just needed to go in, make sure they didn't give the man ick, and they would successfully be signed for an interior design TV show, become famous, sell their company for a large sum of money, or generational wealth, as the accountant said. You guys can maintain the lifestyle, buy extra pair of shoes that you wanted, never worry about anything ever again. But life was not that easy. When James and Dean walked into the private salon, the assistant smiled at them, then guided them into the room and exited the room. There was Larry Kelly, in the fall, when the weather was still kind of warm, had demanded to put on the wood-burning fireplace. The heat roasting the room made it slightly hard to breathe. This was the first time that they had met. Larry Kelly wanted to meet the CEOs first, before making the final decisions. Stood before the disproportionately grand fireplace. A massive gilded vintage mirror stood on top of the mantel, hanging by a thin wire, sloped slightly like a tilting skyscraper, overlooking the construction workers trying to fix the failing structure, elongated the tall, mature man, making him looking even more gigantic. The shadow of Larry Kelly dominated the room that was faintly lit. When Larry Kelly said, "Welcome," James and Dean almost imagined that they had seen a devil rising from the fire and was going to swallow them. Walked into the room, they introduced themselves. To their surprise, Larry Kelly was easygoing, almost like a frat boy, pretending to be mature, yet spoken like a teenager. Sentences riddled with big words, yet filled with unfiltered impliedness. "So you are the pretty one," pointing at Dean. Larry Kelly said, "Dean the trophy." Dean bit his tongue, almost said something inappropriate. Hearing James's awkward laugh, Dean recalled the assistant's tip. "Laugh." So Dean laughed with a dry hiss, coordinated with James's disingenuous acting and Larry Kelly's waving hands. They looked like puppets, performing a ridiculous show. Larry Kelly said, "You know, I had perpetually harbored an immaculate disdain for being denominated the most aesthetically pleasant individual in my family. I abhorrent how we were peremptorily categorized as possessing physiognomic privilege and summarily dismissed of all of our industrious and arduous accomplishments. I am inevitably certain that when your home decor line achieved unprecedented proliferation across the zeitgeist, all they will postulate is that your opulent, pecuniarily endowed husband was the quintessential and predominant force behind accumulating success. And as for the television endeavor, the show will remain inextricably modulated with your husband's nomenclature. However, I'm going to have you conspicuously and unambiguously featured on the promotional tabloid in solitary, unaccompanied sovereignty. The entity of the civilized world will venerate and exalt you. He thought for a second and continued, I'm going to give you a chance. Instead of you both being CEOs, after you both got paid, you. He pointed at Dean, pierced his finger into Dean's chest, while saying, You will be the sole CEO. In shock, betting both of their teeth, the car carried the newly minted multi-millionaire back to their apartment. The car was quiet. Besides the sound of the engine running and occasional potholes, nobody spoke a word. It was awkward. They should have been very happy with the 10 years of their life matured and brought them the juiciest fruit. 10 years ago, two best friend design associates quit their jobs in their separate, prestigious firm together, gathered their last pennies, consolidated their belongings, and illegally resided in their office building, sleeping on the floor of their office studio. That was a precious time. Dean just got out of a long-term relationship with his high school sweetheart, and James was this unconfident little duckling who went through heartbreaks after heartbreaks. They banded together as an interior design team. After getting their breakthrough job for a historical boutique hotel, they came up with the idea of selling their home decor designs, since they had made so many sketches for their clients to find their decorations. After years of developing and growing, they became the hottest and the most profitable interior design firm around the city. Not just in the city, the whole country actually, their accountant once told them. I know I'm just ugly. At the time, sleeping on the floor of their office, James said to Dean, their air mattresses were leaned against each other, their pillows touching, and the lights out, talking like they were teens in a dorm. No, you're my best friend. How can you say that? I won't be friends with you if you're ugly. You're so funny and kind too, Dean said. And I had heard you having sex. He sounded so satisfied. Dean giggled. Made me hard. Yeah, but he didn't call me back. James sighed. Help me to become you. James hopped off the mattress, squatted facing Dean. Dean looked confused. Since that night, James had started to follow Dean's routine to the complete exactness. He ate whatever Dean ate, walked whenever Dean walked, and used whatever Dean put on his face and body. One day in the gym, Dean was watching James working out between sets. A guy came up to Dean, told Dean that he was super cute, and would love to go out with him. James told Dean that he was jealous about how no one had ever come up and been asked out. So Dean asked James out, and James confirmed that it was not a pity date. Dean really liked James, remembered James' favorite scent, James's coffee order, steak order, furniture order, music and movie choices. James was flattered. After dinner, during the break in the Broadway show, James took Dean to the bathroom, pinned Dean to the bathroom stall wall, and loved Dean with an unforgettable orgasm. James looked at Dean in the giant bathroom vanity mirror. With Dean's lightning choice in the bathroom, Dean's naked torso looked even better than James had ever remembered. A body chiseled out of marble, with veins popped on the biceps and forearms. Even with a toothbrush vibrating in his mouth, James was still obsessed with how beautiful Dean looked in the mirror. Then he looked at himself. his torso, although it looked much better than before. Much, much, much better than normal guys in their 40s or even 30s. He was still no comparison to Ding. If Ding was classically enviably beautiful, then James would call himself someone who worked really hard to look good. Thinking about Larry Kelly's words, James felt mad and walked out of the bathroom after brushing his teeth. Then he realized that he hadn't put on the moisturizer on his face and walked back into the bathroom. Ding had just finished applying all the body lotions. The lean muscles shone under the light, reflecting a seductive attraction. Ding smiled, tilted his body, and tried to walk past James. James felt Ding's perky chest, touched his arms, and instinctively reached out his hand, grabbed Ding's waist. Ding instinctively moaned. His brain had been trained to feel the sensation of pleasure when those muscular, calloused hands grabbed onto his narrow waist. Before he was penetrated, he could already feel the tinkling sensation bursting in his body. That night, James once again pinned his sexy, beautiful husband on the wall, pounded Ding's brain to the complete mush, until Larry Kelly's voice repeated in James's brain, "You are ugly, you are ugly, you are ugly." "Am I ugly?" James asked the accountant. The accountant, a mature Asian auntie with a thick Cantonese accent, looked at James's face and replied, "You are crazy. I almost introduced you to my daughter," she replied. "I didn't know what gay was." "But you would choose Ding first?" James asked again. "No," her decisive voice said, making James feel relieved. But she continued, "He is too pretty. Looks like too many people love him. Not husband material for a woman. You look cute, but on the safe side. Dedicated to your spouse. Loyal husband material." James sighed again. Hearing the loud sigh, the accountant stopped typing, lowered her head to let her eyes be released from the frames of her glasses, and said, "What did I say wrong? Ding is really cute, and he loves you." She reached out to her computer screen, pivoted the screen towards James, and pointed to the account balance with her fingers. "What more do you want?" James had no idea what more he wanted. Since the first day that he had met Ding, he had been struck by how cute Ding was. Standing outside of the club, being asked to pay for the admission fee, Ding flipped and threatened to leave, causing the whole friends group to get into the bar for free. Now this guy is James's husband, literally the only person that had fucked him for the past 10 years. What more do I want? He asked himself. And if you ask more stupid questions like that, I'm going to charge you. I know how much my daughter charges her patients, the accountant said. Her daughter was a psychotherapist. When the company was officially sold, James got demoted to be an executive operating officer, and Ding remained as the CEO. Ding grew into the sole executive pretty fast, but James was taking forever to get used to his new role. Apologizing for overstepping became his most frequent used phrase. They had their separate offices. Other than the tag that was on the doors, nothing had changed physically. Ding noticed the discomfort in James, but he was overwhelmed by the change of pace as well. There used to be his partner, who corresponded with him, now by himself, making decisions for almost everything, strangled by the legal team, restricted by the financial team. Thank goodness, James always smoothed out the operation team, otherwise Ding would explode. They thought they would have more freedom. Their life got stuck in a loop of never-ending marathon of leaving the apartment, working out, going back to the apartment. and occasionally social events that they had to attend. On Ding's birthday, James hosted a lavish event as part of the company effort to attract more rich and powerful clients. It was drastically different than their wedding. Not sure if it was because of Larry Kelly's attendance, or the couple is now part of the rich and powerful. Whoever didn't attend the wedding attended Ding's birthday. Dressed in similar matching suits, Ding felt James was trying to stand away from him. During the appreciation speech, when Ding mentioned James, James didn't stand up in the audience, just raised the champagne glass as a toast. Larry Kelly was somehow the host of the whole event. They had hired a professional comedian for it, but Larry Kelly was drunk or high. He gave a speech about his struggle of being the good-looking son, and no one cared about his effort on working hard as hell, being the most wealthy and powerful person in the room. Nobody stopped him, just chit-chats in the audience here and there. How ugly is his family? Oh, Google it. His confidence is charming, but he is delusional. Ding though, he is beautiful. His husband is right there. Heard the conversation. James twisted his face away, trying to avoid further judgment. The night ended with people complimenting James and Ding. What a beautiful couple! Which made James felt even more conscious about himself. On the way home, James struggled. But when he finally wanted to tell Ding how he had been feeling, he realized that Ding had already fallen asleep, and the feelings that were about to come out of the emotional junk drawers got locked back in. After the Thanksgiving break, after the couple decorated the apartment with their pride collection of holiday ornaments, Ding got a schedule update requesting him to travel just days before Christmas, conflicting the schedule to prepare for the Christmas Day party, which they had invited even more people than their wedding. Facing the conflict and the opportunity, James put himself in the shoes of Ding and told him to go for the meeting that they had been chasing to get for years. Of course, with all the exhaustions being accumulated on Ding, he didn't realize while he was hugging James, James was feeling the sadness and the frustration. We will have a relaxing break after the party. Relax, then get ready to shoot the TV show. Ding held onto James tightly. After spending a whole day decorating, going through the menu, itinerary, guest list, sitting charts, performers, etc., plus the disappointments of not being with Ding, decorating on the project together, James was exhausted. Left the venue with still some stuff to do. James arrived home, feeling lonely. After reading tons of articles about plastic surgeries, James was tempted. But there wouldn't be enough recovery time before the TV show schedule. Looking at the cozy and heartwarmingly festive apartment, James got out of his phone, searched around the adult video sites. Suddenly, an ad for an escort site popped up, and James clicked on it. An hour later, a college-educated, highly intelligent escort arrived, and the doorman called Ding left a message to see if the access for entry should be granted before James came downstairs to fetch the handsome young man. Seeing the awkward interaction, the naive doorman got sweat flooding his palms and armpits. He didn't say anything, scared of James, who just paid him $100 for a holiday tip, and didn't want James to get mad at him. Welcomed the babe out of the woods into their wonderfully cultured and well-traveled gay interior designer apartment. James told him to get comfortable before turning into the kitchen and getting the young man bottled water. When James returned to the living room, the young man had stripped completely naked standing and flexing his toned muscles under the carefully chosen spotlights. James screamed, dropped water bottles on both of his feet, while trying to cover his eyes with his hands. Then he screamed again when both of his big toes crushed by the weighted plastic bottles. "Sorry, I didn't realize you really meant just to talk." The young man apologized. That night, James expressed to the young man how Larry Kelly had triggered the feeling of loneliness, even living and working with his husband all day and every day. The notion of feeling unaccomplished at work, dissatisfied with his own appearance, while being scared and excited at the same time to be on TV soon. James dumped all the negativity on the inexperienced young man, leaving the young man gushing. "So the life won't get better? With an apartment like this, with work, with the opportunity to be on TV, having all the accomplishments like yours, I still won't feel satisfied?" The young man was studying in the local prestigious college, which has a cost as expensive as a brownstone mansion. But due to the heavy tuition burden, he decided to do this actual work to reduce the further stress. James reflected on himself, thought about his situation. Indeed, he was in a good place. He did hit the ultimate jackpot. A beautiful and capable husband who he loves and loves him. Although he was demoted, he did get a huge payout. And it's a great job with a huge parachute safety net. Not to mention, after paying the apartment off, it still looked like no withdrawal had been made. "And you are so very sexy. I'm surprised that my first client would be like this. I thought you'd be like Frankenstein's monster. I will hook up with you just because how you look actually," the young man said. Looking at the color-faced innocence, James offered to take the young man under his wing and offered him a job in the office, wanting to preserve and protect the innocence. The very next day, James left the apartment with his new assistant, but the huge amount of the event preparation quickly overwhelmed both of them, and nobody gave Dean the update on the new hire. So when Dean cleaned up and arrived at the venue, he was stunned by the young man. He was stunned by his younger self standing beside his husband, greeting the guests. After a quick introduction, Dean was thrown into the swell of high society, commenting on the diamonds, dresses, and the results of plastic surgeries. In this whole time, in the back of Dean's mind, Dean connected the late-night call from the doorman. "Mr. Dean, someone looks like you is here with me. No name. Should I let him up?" With James's unnatural introduction, "Oh, meet my new assistant." In politeness, Dean reached out his hand, that's covered with sweat, confronted the young version of himself, who he was sure had sex with his husband. After a long night of fake smiling, maintaining a high-pitched gay voice, socializing and chit-chatting, the leftover battery in Dean was completely out. Trying to keep his lazy eyes open, Dean stood in front of the mirror, inspecting his disappearing youth. Seeing the puffiness under his eyes, he couldn't help but think about James's new assistant, comparing the youthfulness against his own, arching his back, pulling his face so close to the mirror, and he found a couple of small and faint wrinkles around his eyes. Just as he felt tired and was about to sigh, James walked up to him, grabbed his narrow waist and obliques, and started to kiss him from the back of the neck, all the way towards the end of his spine. While Dean was still bewitched by the aging look, James pulled down the tight-fitting briefs that perfectly hugged around those peachy cakes before Dean realized James had started to rail him. Dean looked at the mirror, staring at himself, couldn't help but see the young assistant being bent over like himself, and seeing the energetic James satisfyingly letting his desire and need fly, releasing all the pleasure into Ding's hard-earned physique. Ding didn't sleep that night. With the deep doubt and the complete drain, he spiraled into an utter mess. In the early morning, James was woken up by the sound of the doorbell and the sound of the delivery service. Putting on a blanket-like robe, James walked into the foyer. There were 3 large shopping totes of skincare products. Ding grabbed 2 of them. After the attempt to grab all 3 of them failed, the bags were filled completely to the brim. James offered to help. Picking up the bag, a box of anti-aging, wrinkle-smoothing eye cream fell out of the bag. James was confused. Coming to the kitchen island, seeing his beautiful husband under the beautiful morning sunlight, Ding had started to display the boxes and boxes of products on the table. James took a look. All the skincare products were anti-aging products. James was dumbfounded. Ding wanted to confess and wanted to tell James that he knew James had slept with the young assistant, but Ding was scared. He thought all night, felt guilty about enjoying being a sole CEO, able to decide things the exact way that he wanted. Although with stress, he felt powerful and creative. In addition, he dared not tell James. He was afraid of being much older than the assistant. Almost as if he said it out loud, all of his fears would come true. Not only was Ding scared of being replaced by the young assistant, but he also thought about James leaving him. He would be crushed. In the past 10 years, he had grown so dependent on James. All the works, life, food, and even sex were so intertwined together. With all that, it made James' betrayal cut so much deeper. Oh, I was thinking about getting my skin condition to the peak before getting in front of the camera. Then I thought about starting a skincare line if we ever wanted to change directions. Plus, we are of the age perfectly to splurge even if it's not business. Ding lied. Being adorably cute his whole life, Ding had grown into the confidence in whatever he said, even when he was unconfident. Also, because of his cute appearance, Ding was able to get away from being super straightforward and unfiltered, sometimes making offensive jokes, and usually could get away with it unscathed. James looked at Ding, being super confused on testing the products, being mature and so focused. It caused James to have a strong morning tent, like a teenager. He walked behind Ding, hugged him from behind, and lowered his head to kiss Ding's neck. Even with the mixed fragrances from the products, Ding's charm still smelled stronger than the distractions. Ding felt the hard James poking against his thin layer of jersey knit, which accentuated the perfect bubble butts into an even more substantial silhouette. Ding was jealous, thought James was into him only because of the young assistant lookalike, who tickled James's long-lost interest in him. Ding wanted to reject, using an excuse of wanting to start working on the small project. But with James kissing his ears, hugging him against his throbbing hardness, he gave in. Being pushed against the island, Ding felt a violent thrust in him and pushed all the blood and oxygen into his brain. In a loud moan, Ding passed out from the incredible experience. When Ding woke up from the couch, it was already the next morning. Ding's work exhaustion and sleeplessness over the concern of youth and infidelity took over him. James created a makeshift human doggy bed by the couch and was laying by the couch to distant cuddle with Ding. Looking around, The automatic blind had not been pulled open yet. It was really early in the morning. He got up from the bathroom to clean up. Then he started to obsess all over his look once again. Looking around fine lines around his eyes, applied a thick layer of eye creams around his well-rested eyes. Realizing that he had purchased a huge amount of anti-aging products, he walked around the house to find them. They were all removed from the kitchen and had been moved into the office. To Dean's surprise, James categorized them by ingredients, ranked them by internet reviews, along with improvement suggestions on the desk, a handwritten list of whom they could call to discuss the skincare idea, which James had also drawn up, based on all the years of experiences in doing his best to improve his own appearance. But then angrily thought, if he didn't bring the mini-me back to this home to cheat on me, I would have forgiven him. Throughout the Christmas break, the couple was in an odd dance. Dean was trying to keep distance from James since he was still mad at James for bringing home a trick. But James was in the euphoric state since the talk with the assistant broke him out of the odd emotional hole and stopped him from thinking that he was old and ugly, like a guitar string that was being pulled tightly. With just a small tease, Dean would explode. Unfortunately, when they returned to the office, Larry Kelly was waiting in Dean's office, sitting in Dean's chair, with his assistant standing by him, with smiles that were almost innocent. He informed Dean that he would be dumping James from the TV show, and Dean would be the only host for the planned show. "Aren't you excited?" Larry Kelly said with such enthusiasm. "No!" Dean spoke with no hesitation, wiping his sweaty palms on those designer cashmere trousers, using a loud voice that traveled through the whole office, attracted a whole company of gays and girls to gather outside of Dean's office, thinking about how he was pushed into the spot to handle the company all by himself, causing him to alienate his beloved husband, causing him to be isolated and alone. The anger in Dean was about to explode. Then he saw the new assistant, who was walking towards the office with James, walking side by side, looking like a perfect version of himself, but only younger. Dean exploded, dished out on Larry Kelly's ridiculous name after telling him off on the ridiculous way that he had managed the company that caused the chaos. James walked by the crowd that gathered around the office. The assistant hushed all the people away, then stood outside of the office after James joined the fight. Larry Kelly was in shambles. His assistant walked out of the door, stood next to the young assistant, with a complete straight face, unbothered by the drama. Apparently, Larry Kelly was no match to Dean's hellfire. So, seeing James walking in, he found a raft that he could latch on. James, tell him, "Don't you think I'm being a terrific boss? Elevating your husband is a tremendous thing, isn't it?" "Yes, Mr. Larry Kelly." James tried to calm the situation, but Dean wasn't going to let that happen. "For the record, he also thinks calling you Mr. Larry Kelly was ridiculous, and you don't." Turned to look at James. Dean said, "You slept with the young mini-me out there when I was out on the trip. You don't support elevating me at all, and he was going to fire you from the TV show." Wait, no, who told you that? I never even touched him. I only love you. And why am I fired?" James tried to clarify and was confused by the news. The young assistant heard the faint sound from the argument, turned around, shaking his head vigorously, trying to clarify that James had been a perfect gentleman. Ding should probably let go of Larry Kelly's lack of skill of understanding the world. When he heard Larry Kelly open his mouth and said, "I don't think they had sex," such behavior is utterly discordant with their inherent ethos. Ding felt relieved and asked the stupid question, "Even that I'm old?" With both Larry Kelly and James looked at Ding, completely dumbfounded, reassuring how attractive he is. The dreamy knockout poster child for circuit party muscle gay boy. Ding felt relieved and said back to his husband, "Oh, I only love you too." James' young assistant looked at Larry Kelly's assistant. Although she looked unbothered, he could see the slight excitement towards the drama raising in the corner in her lips. Realizing she was being watched, she stared back fiercely, deterring the curious youthful observation away, like the snake-haired Medusa. Oddly, with the confession of love, the office cooled down. The couple and Larry Kelly spoke softly. The young assistant heard Larry Kelly apologized and promised to rethink all of his decisions that he had made, which was shocking to the young assistant. The young assistant looked at the seasoned assistant. She was still unbothered, as if she had seen the same scene replayed before her more than 10,000 times. When she left with Larry Kelly, the young assistant walked into Ding's office and heard James said, "You think we are fired?" Ding nodded his head and said, "Should be interesting to see the parachute money come in so fast and so early. Are we really going to develop your skincare line?" James asked. That's all for this episode of The Living Journey. I truly am grateful for your time. Feel free to leave your reviews. Please like, follow, or subscribe. Do share this show so we can grow together. Lots of hope. Signing out.